All right, welcome to another PSL demo day. Today we're excited to have Hank Doupe, who's coming to us from Compute Tooling, and Hank is going to show us how to deploy apps on a web platform called Compute Studio that he's developed. Hank, take it away.
Cool, thanks, Jason. All right, so today let me share my screen. Today I'm going to show how to publish a app on Compute Studio, and we're going to use a feature that was deployed last night at 2 in the morning. So hopefully it works well. But until this point, you could go and you'd fill out this form, and you'd create a new app on Compute Studio. Then I would get an email as a Compute Studio maintainer, and then I would check out your project. And then I would manually start off like a software build and deployment, and then I would have to do a lot of manual steps, and so then there's a lot of back and forth between me and people who are publishing on Compute Studio. But as of last night, this is done automatically. So today I'm going to publish an app that's just a fork of Tax Cruncher, which is it's a PSL model, and it's just an easy one to deploy, and will be nice for demo purposes. Cool. So first, if you're on Compute Studio, you can go and publish an app here, and then give it a title, demo, and we'll make it public. And there are a couple of different ways that you can deploy something on Compute Studio. You can use this Python param_tools flow, where you use the param_tools library to handle your inputs for your model, and then the user goes and they fill out a form, selecting the values that they want to run, and then your model will use param_tools to kind of handle those, and then you'll run it, return some results, and the user can check them out. You can also publish data visualizations with Bokeh and Dash and Streamlit. Today we're going to do a Python param_tools app. So we click Create.
Can I ask you a question, Hank?
Yeah.
That technology section, is that the limit of things you can add, or can you just bring in any environment that you choose in like your a Conda environment or another type of environment?
So with that list of options, you can do let's see. So you can select. So these are just the ones that are supported right now. So initially it was just Bokeh and Dash, but recently I added Streamlit. But whatever you want to use, you can just request it, and there's a good chance that we can support it.
I see. Request another. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And then we'll get into how you set up your content environment, how that works in a few minutes. So then you have a README. It supports Markdown. Expected job time, how long will your model take to run, and so this is just used for when you click run and the simulation is running. This helps calculate the estimated time for the results. Plug in a link to your code repository. So mine is and then we'll use the master repo tag, but you can select whichever one you want to deploy, and then connect app. Cool. All right, and so here's where we get into, this is a very new feature that isn't like fully integrated yet, but if you know the right link, then you can go to it. So right now it just says our team is preparing your app to be published, but you can also just hop over to the builds page, and there are no builds yet, but you can create one. And cool. So what's happening behind the scenes here is we just started a GitHub Actions run in this Compute Studio Publish repository. Let's see. Well, we should have. Did I just push it here? Oh, that's the same one. So that might be an issue. So I did a test one, and it looks like it picked up demo test from earlier. All right. So what I'm going to do is cancel this. This is what I get for testing before I started this. I should have just done it. So I'm going to cancel it. I'll close that pull request and just start over. Awesome. All right. Let's see what we get here. All right. So that did not go how we wanted to go. All right. So I'm going to pop back over here. So we got and cancel it. Cool. So let's see. New build. Just takes a second to get everything started.
Now, Hank, while you're waiting, discuss a little bit kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So there's a GitHub action running, but all you had to provide was the repo name. I mean, what else had to be set up in the in the repository that you
Right.
the URL for?
Right. Cool. So this is running now. So I'm just going to hop over here. So that's running. This is all coming together. All right. So I think we're back on track now. All right. So what's happening behind the scenes? This starts a GitHub Actions, and this is going to go to your source code, sorry, GitHub repository. And it's going to download all your code, and then it's going to look to see if you have an environment.yaml file or a requirements.txt file. This one just has environment.yaml file, and it looks at and it creates a content environment from this file, and it will download everything and get it all set up. And because this is a parameters model, you have to have the CS config package, and this has a few functions in it. The important ones are there's one to get the version for your project, and that's you'll see that at the end when the build is done, and that will show that'll be what the users see for your what version of the model they're working with. And then there's a function to get the inputs, and this is going to be used to build the inputs form once everything is done. There's a function to validate your user, or the inputs from the user. And then finally, there's a function that actually runs the model and then returns the results. And all this uses RM tools to read in your inputs. Your inputs will look like this. It's a dictionary. Maybe this example looks a little complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple to set them up. And then if everything goes well, then we'll get an inputs page that looks like this one. And you'll have a few different inputs and so on. And you click run, you click simulation. It's sending the inputs that were entered here to the model, and it's just checking them behind the scenes, and now the model's running.
Okay, so just to clarify, so you need your environment file for your package. In that, you need to import the CSKit library, which is a Compute Studio kit that the package you've developed that helps deploy these apps. And then you need, if you're using param tools, you need the CS config directory with some certain modules within that. And you gave a good example there with Tax Cruncher, and there are a few models in the PSL catalog that are using param tools and deployed in this way. So those, we can reference those later as kind of good examples, but thanks for kind of going through the requirements.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some documentation on it at docs.compute.studio, and that's linked in the publish page too. This has a lot of background on the functions you need. This one that gets version, the model parameters to build the page, and so on. And then also tells you how to publish a data visualization, which is a little easier. So if you already have a Dash or bokeh app, then and you have an environment.yaml or requirements.txt file, then Compute Studio, you don't really need to make any changes for Compute Studio to publish a project. You just tell Compute Studio what module the server is for the data visualization, and then Compute Studio kind of knows what to look for, and will deploy it using their own technology. So right now we have some tests running. So test passed, and this is all just going through the GitHub Actions API. And there's some logs here, and we'll get the logs at the end. For some reason, GitHub doesn't let you get to the logs for a GitHub action through the API until the action has run all the way through. So I don't know, not a whole lot we can do there, but just kind of wait for it to run. And so these stages are building the software environment, looking at your content, your environment.yaml file or requirements.txt, setting that up. It's running tests. So if you publish a param tools model, then there's a PyTest class that you give it your functions, and then it will feed inputs into them and make sure that the return values are in the correct format, and it will check to make sure that it has some error handling, that kind of thing.
I have a question for you, Hank.
Sure.
So you gave the example of this tax cruncher model and then visualizations, and that visualizations are going to be quite a bit easier. And I think by that you mean that it doesn't require any of the param tools CS config stuff. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to publish a model on Compute Studio, it's just infinitely easier if they use param tools in their model, because that kind of sets up the interface for the inputs to the model and how it should be run. Is that essentially a dependency, that it would be really hard for somebody to do that without having param tools running the inputs to their model?
It would definitely be more difficult because you'd have to set that up. But if you're already using param tools, then you are just putting together a few param tools API calls, like creating your param tools classes, setting the state for them, and then dumping them into a dictionary. But yeah. So
if some outside group has a model, really to put it on Compute Studio, I would just encourage them to integrate param tools with their model so they can just pop it up on Compute Studio. Is that what you would do also? Yeah,
and it depends what you're trying to do with your model. So the param tools models are good because you run them, and then you get a result, and that result is archived and you can share it with people. If you have a data visualization, then maybe your user, you go in and you move some sliders around and you create some graphs, but then you leave the page and you come back and everything is gone. And so it's a little bit more difficult to share from there. Or if param tools is also good if you have like a really long running model. So like OGUSA runs for a long time, like hours. And so you can just kick off a run, say email me when it's done, and then you'll get notified when it's done later. You don't have to sit there and keep the page open or something like that. So that's another benefit. But data visualization is nice if you just want to get an interactive out to the world to get people to play with the data. Cool. So this finished. We have our logs now, and so this is just some Docker output, and then we get into the cskit build-in command, and this is looking at all of your dependency files in your project and building your software environment, and so it's just your standard Conda logs, and then it all comes through. See what's downloaded, and then at the end it's you have a Docker image, and then tests are run on that Docker image, and here are the logs from that. There's a test for the version, test to get the inputs, a few different combinations, validating the inputs, just test for that. We're actually running the whole model. And the stage test, which maybe I'll probably come up with a different label for this in the future, but this is once the tests are run, then we push the Docker image to the Compute Studio Docker repository so that it can be run by the Compute Studio cluster. Cool, so everything's done. These logs a little bit, and now just click release. You get a little information, when did it start, how long did it take, what's the version of the project. So click release. All right, so that's done, and this is sort of some internal information about how the Docker image is tagged, and then the version for the model. And so we'll go here, go to the app, and so it's going to take a few seconds to pull the Docker image into the compute cluster. So we'll just kind of give that a second. Let's see. Do you guys have any questions or anything else you think?
Yeah, Hank, while we're waiting for this, yeah, you click through the previous page, and I won't make you go back here, but that was kind of the title page for this app, and that's something that just as before, somebody can edit here once they're kind of logged into Compute Studio, they can change, this title and so on.
Right, exactly. So you README. There's a social image URL. So if someone tweets a link to your project, like if they tweet a link to this previous Tax Cruncher demo page, then it will use that image in the social media preview for the link. That's helpful for sharing the project. There are a few other things that you can do. You can change the job time. You can go do some advanced configuration on the environment. You can set how many CPUs you want to use, how much memory you want to use. There's some access levels. And so right now it's public and it's listed, so it pops up here, but you can also make it unlisted. And now it's hidden from this dropdown. So this is nice because this isn't really a public app. It doesn't necessarily need to be private, but it doesn't really need to be listed. No one needs to use this. Cool. All right, so our inputs are ready. And so we'll just go and put an age. Really sophisticated tax modeler right here. So off the bat, users pay for your model. I can set up a sponsor for it, so like that, then that sponsor would be charged for the compute costs, and the costs are just they're at standard Google Cloud compute pricing, and then you get billed at the end of the month for how much you use. But right now it's just users pay to use this, and so I'm okay paying a penny to run this.
Is that, Hank, is that the standard price for like a 30-second compute time is 1 penny?
Right, it's really cheap.
That's awesome.
Especially for, like, this is 1 CPU and 2 gigabytes of memory, I think. So
That's great.
Run it. Just takes a second. Cool. So it looks like a business. And so if you're curious, kind of behind the scenes, this starts a Kubernetes job here, and it'd be cool if we could get the logs and show them, like if you're a project maintainer and you like want to see what's happening under the hood when you run your model. So no logs right now, but it'd be cool to like have an option here to be like, show me the logs, but only have it available to people who are like have some ownership access to the project documentation. So it's just kind of running away. It'll take a few seconds.
And so, in deploying this, all of the standard Compute Studio functionality, and I know we've had PSL demo days with a number of apps hosted on Compute Studio before, but the kind of forking and the ability to like title and give a description for your simulation, it looks like all of this is there automatically when you create one of these apps.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, there's a text editor. So some people use this functionality, not everyone does, but it's there. I hope more people title their simulations and share them.
Yeah. Even if you're not sharing it, it's helpful for me to go back and have a record of what I was doing.
Yeah. So then you get your charts. You can share this with people. So that's like share this with Jason. Good. Jason will get an email with the a link to it. Let's see, we can change visibility on it, make it private, public. You go to blog, it'll be there. Yep. And some other ones. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And maybe another thing that would be cool is if we wanted to do something like if we wanted to like change one of the parameters. I don't know if we'll have time to deploy the client. We can try. Let's see, section 1. Maybe we'll just play with this. See if we can change like a section name and get it deployed in time to see like, the results. Github now. Pop over to our app. Gonna change the repo tag just for make sure it works. So this is the branch I just pushed. All right, let's save those changes. This will be the builds link will be connected soon. I just got the necessities in for this. Awesome. So let's start a new build. Hopefully it pulls in the right version. We'll see an update on the inputs page. I think we might run out of time though.
Okay, so Hank, okay, so you updated the underlying package, pushed those changes to the repo, and then you just went to your TaxCruncher demo, changed the branch you were looking at in the repo that it builds this package from the TaxCruncher package in this case, and now you just did new build. It looks to that place you're pointing it now, and you'll have this new app built, and then the next time one visits the tax cruncher demo model and runs it, it should reflect these changes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything works. That's a plan.
Slick. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
I have a question, Hank, about visualizations, if you have a sec.
Sure.
So take for example, a bokeh visualization. Most of those are just standalone HTML pages, don't need to be served. And so whether you put this on Compute Studio or whether you put it on just some other HTML page or URL isn't going to matter that much. But this, like, for example, I have one visualization that I pay $14 a month to Heroku to serve it. And my guess is if I hosted it on Compute Studio, it's one, it has some 3D stuff that has to be provided on a server. My guess is that would be a lot cheaper to run through Compute Studio because it would just be a per view and manipulation kind of session cost. That's my hunch. Does that seem like that's correct?
Yeah, well, it sounds like it would still have to run on a server, right, to generate. So there's probably, it sounds like there's some callbacks, or no?
Yeah, but yes, but Compute Studio, my guess is that's the value of having a visualization on Compute Studios. You provide the server.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
you're an alternative to Heroku or whatever other app someone wants to use.
So the data visualizations are generally cheaper on Compute Studios. Heroku charges a good bit of overhead for compute if you go beyond the free tier, and we just charge at cost. And the Compute Studio will also, if no one has gone to your apps page or has been active on it in the previous 15 minutes, then it'll turn off the server. And as soon as you go back and go into that tab, it'll start it back up. Or if someone goes and loads a page, then we'll start it back up. So it's generally pretty, like maybe $5 a month or something like that to publish on Compute Studio. I mean, it depends on how many people use it, and that's for the like if you publish a data visualization. Let's pick this one. Yeah, so it just starts it right up. Sometimes it takes a few seconds. Sometimes.
Yeah, the first time I start mine up, it usually takes a second to wake it up. You have to pay more to have it just always awake.
Right. Yeah, and so Compute Studio doesn't have that full-on always awake mode, but that would be a nice feature for people who did want that. But it comes around fairly quickly. Yeah, so this is the data visualization option. All right, so let's run a test now. That'd be a few minutes.
Yeah, but a little bit of overhead as you kind of deploy that new, update your app in this case, right? It's got to go through the test, which makes sense. At least then right? It takes a couple minutes, but then once these have finished, you'll know if it'll actually work or not when users go visit that landing page.
Exactly. And
if it doesn't, suppose these tests didn't pass and you've already got the tax cruncher demo out there, you wanted to update it, does the old one still remain, or did you kind of destroy that in the process of trying to launch a new build here?
Yeah, so the old one is still there, and you have to, and it'll be there until you release this one.
Got it. Okay, that's great. Yeah.
You can't release it unless a test pass. There's no over.
So then that ensures you kind of don't put up a broken app, and like as you're kind of, if you run into a bug at this stage, right, you've still got the other thing working right now. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, Hank, this has been really cool. Thanks for sharing this with us. Myself as a maintainer of 2 projects that have apps hosted on Compute Studio, I'm excited to bother you less and deploy things myself. So this is really, really helpful there. And I hope others kind of look at this again. Like Hank said, there's some steps with the param tools to get your package set up, but there's examples of several models in the PSL catalog that do this. And Hank's always been very helpful in responding. So I'm sure if you aren't already using param tools and you wanted to, you could come around to that. And then have the ability to launch these other apps with the visualization tools like Bokeh or Dash is really cool. Hank, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Take care.